touch on The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
Only because you're in the weeds there right now.
I'm in the weeds.
When does that come out, by the way? I keep writing on your Instagram.
it's coming out
Every time you post a photo. I keep writing on your Instagram.
it's coming out
Every time you post a photo.
I keep writing on your Instagram. Every time you post a photo.
Oh, God! No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Now, I know we have been talking a lot recently about The Last of Us Part 2 on my channel. We've been talking about a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors, a lot of these things that are not official that have to do mainly with the release date and the release window of this game. There are a lot of people who were fully expecting The Last of Us Part 2 to be the big holiday 2019 title for Sony, but as it turns out, it's not The Last of Us Part 2 that's going to take that spot. It's going to be Death Stranding, which I think caught a lot of people off guard, myself included. But we did get information from Jason Schreier that, for anybody who isn't aware of who he is, I'm sure most of you are aware, he's a well-known industry insider with a pretty good track record, and when he talks about this stuff, it's probably best to pay a little bit of attention to it if you care about this stuff, that is. The last we heard was that The Last of Us Part 2 was actually scheduled to release this year, but at the last minute, Naughty Dog had to go to Sony and let them know, hey, we actually need a little bit more time. So Sony decided to push The Last of Us Part 2 into early 2020 and move Death Stranding up to holiday of this year because apparently Kojima and his team feel confident enough that they're going to be ready to have their game good to go by November of this year, which it's all exciting. But the point is, we still don't have anything official. Jason Schreier also mentioned that the last he heard was that The Last of Us Part 2 was due out February of 2020. That's the internal date that they have set. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is because we have some potentially new information. You probably saw the clip at the beginning of this video where the voice actress who does Ellie actually may have slipped up and given us the release date in a very subtle but almost clear way. If you watch this, well, you know what, let's read a little bit here. It says, despite Sony no-showing E3 2019, voice actress Ashley Johnson has hinted that The Last of Us Part 2 release date, or has hinted at The Last of Us Part 2 release date in a new video interview with Brian Foster. Quizzed on the game's release date, Johnson, who voices the main protagonist Ellie in the upcoming Naughty Dog sequel, can be heard almost uttering the month that The Last of Us Part 2 will come out. If you listen carefully, it sounds like she's about to say February. And I have to admit that when I first came across this article and I read this, I was like, no way. There's no way. These people, they're just, it's wishful thinking. It's what they want to hear. And then I went back and I watched the clip myself, and I was actually pretty surprised. The guy just straight up asked, I guess Brian Foster, his name is, just straight up asked her, so when's the game coming out? And for a minute, it's almost like Ashley Johnson forgot that she was being filmed, and she started thinking about it, and she seemed like she was straight up about to say she thinks February. And the question then becomes, well, would Ashley Johnson know the release date of The Last of Us Part 2? And honestly, I think it would be a safe assumption to say, yes, of course she does. She's playing the main protagonist of the game. She's playing Ellie. She's very, very close to the project. So if Sony and Naughty Dog have an internal release window saying, it's going to release February of 2020, then she would certainly be aware of that. And so it's very interesting to kind of think, does this all add up? Does this all add up to this February 2020 release date being when we can actually expect this game? And I'm not going to lie to you. To me, it's starting to seem like yes. I can't help but pay close attention to the way Ashley Johnson seemingly almost slipped up here, because there's no doubt about it in my mind that she was going to say February. And she the only reluctance seemed to have been like she couldn't remember if she knew when that. It's almost like she wasn't thinking about whether or not the release date was actually made official yet. It's like she was actually trying to remember herself. Oh wait, when is it coming out? And she was just going to let him know. But then she immediately remembered and caught herself and realized, oh wait a second, nobody knows. Nobody's supposed to know, and she just stopped herself halfway through. I mean, I just don't know what else she could have been ready to say there. I mean, she said Feb. So, I mean, you make of that what you will. If you ask me, all signs are pointing to this February 2020 date being the real date. Now, of course, we're not going to know for sure until Sony gives us official confirmation. And I do want to stress that we were in this situation before where all the signs this year were pointing towards The Last of Us Part 2 releasing as the big holiday 2019 game. And as it turns out, that was the case. That is how it was supposed to go down, but at the last minute, like I said earlier, Naughty Dog had to push it back because they feel they need more time. So, could we see another situation where this is all just completely wrong and it's adding up to nothing? Honestly, I want to say yes, and I only say that because there is a very good reason why Sony hasn't come out here and given us an official release date yet. There's a reason why they've been very quiet and playing it very close to the chest. There's a couple things here. The first thing is there's no doubt in my mind that Sony is well aware of the juggernaut they have on their hands with The Last of Us Part 2. So they are aware that the day they drop the release date, they're obviously going to drop something else alongside with it, like another big trailer, maybe showing off Joel. I mean, honestly, if they really want to go all out, I think the best way to do it would be to not only drop that trailer featuring Joel, which would get people very excited, and obviously give us more footage and hopefully gameplay, but maybe talk a little bit about the multiplayer as well, show that off, because I think there's some people who are excited about that, and we are going to talk about that in just a second, how apparently some people are worried that The Last of Us Part 2 will actually not feature a multiplayer component. We'll get into that in a minute, but I feel like they're going to want to do this. They're going to want to put it right alongside the release window or release date, and I have to say that we have, I don't even know if we can call it a rumor, but there has been a lot of speculation going around saying that Sony is going to have a somewhat of a, I don't know if we can call it a surprise state of play, because Sony has proven with their prior state of play live streams that they will announce these things at the last moment, like they'll announce them just a couple days seemingly before they host it. There's a lot of speculation that they are going to do another one before the end of this month, and that's when we're going to get the big update on The Last of Us Part 2 as well as Ghost of Tsushima, and we're going to get a release window for both of those games. Now, if that's the case, that would be awesome, and it would make a lot of sense as to why Sony would do that, obviously, because it is E3 month. E3 just ended, I believe. And while they still, I think, in my opinion, did have somewhat of a presence, it would just really show that they can have an even bigger presence during one of the most important months, or, normally what would be one of the most important months for them. So it's anybody's guess at this point. Honestly, if you were to ask me, I'm going to say, yeah, I think she almost slipped up, and I think she may have almost accidentally revealed the release month of The Last of Us Part 2. Would it come as a surprise? For me, no, it wouldn't, because I believe Jason Schreier. He's been accurate about a lot of things in the past, so I believe when he says it's going to be February 2020, or at least that's what he heard, he's not confirming it, he's just saying that's what he heard, it would make a lot of sense. Now, the last thing I want to bring up here has to do with The Last of Us Part 2. Apparently, maybe not having multiplayer, but apparently it's been debunked, and it is pretty much confirmed it is going to have multiplayer. It says Naughty Dog may be best known for its rip-roaring single-player campaigns, but the studio has been pumping out entertaining online multiplayer romps for a good decade or so now. The Last of Us is easily its best work, with its SOCOM-inspired white-knuckle bouts being a breath of fresh air in an era of kill streaks and whatnot. There's some concern that The Last of Us Part 2 may not have a multiplayer mode, though, as the packaging for Sony's limited edition Days of Play console outright says as much in the small print. Fortunately, we reckon this is just an error. The developer confirmed last year that its popular Factions mode will return in the sequel, and it's been busy hiring multiplayer designers for some time. Rest easy then, multiplayer will be back, and we're fairly confident it'll be immense. In fact, with the long-awaited sequel supposedly due out next year, there's every chance we may get our first glimpse of online play imminently. So, yeah, I wanted to mention this as well because for anybody who maybe is concerned by that, it seems like it is an error. It seems like everything is pointing to The Last of Us Part 2 having a multiplayer mode unless they just cut it at the last moment. And I just want to touch on that for just a brief moment here where I want to say I'm all for that. I have to say one of the biggest surprises of The Last of Us, well, not only that it was like one of the most mind-blowing games I've ever played, but what was even almost crazier than that was because of how unexpected it was for me was when I decided to try out the multiplayer, and I was expecting it to be, I'm not going to lie, I was expecting it to straight up be bad. I wasn't expecting anything from it, and I was genuinely shocked at how good it actually was and how much fun I ended up having and just how well done the multiplayer component of that game was. So I have to say I am very much looking forward to the follow-up, The Last of Us Part 2 having a fully fleshed out multiplayer mode. I'm really interested in that. Obviously, let's be real here. Most people are going to be buying The Last of Us Part 2 to continue Joel and Ellie's story and potentially see it come to a close. But it's nice for anybody who was a fan. And so this is where I'm going to end the video. I'm going to ask you guys to leave your thoughts down below. Do you think Ashley Johnson may have actually slipped up here and almost revealed that the game is going to be coming out in February of 2020? Do you think it lines up with what Jason Schreier had to say not too long ago? And are you excited at whatever this multiplayer mode for The Last of Us Part 2 may be? Did you enjoy the first game's multiplayer? I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say. Be sure to leave this video a like if you did enjoy it. Really helps it out, lets me know you guys are enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.